A quick warning. This podcast deals with violence and sexual assault. Listener discretion is advised. Previously on Someone's Hunting Us.
I think there's something happening. There's a like somebody's hurting us.
Maybe she's somewhere captive and they're not letting her go, and we just gotta wait till they find her.
They asked was she a streetwalker. That was his exact word. And I remember thinking, like, what is a streetwalker? Like, that's an old term. And I'm like, no, do it matter though? She missing.
The dead bees were lined up on the window ledge, one tiny body after another. They were all decapitated.
The weirdest shit, I used to chop off bees' heads.
Scott worked security at ShopRite in 2016. There, he befriended a quirky young man who also worked security at the supermarket.
In the tedious period standing by the door, waiting to chase down shoplifters, the young man opened up to him. He talked about girls and his dad dying in a tragic motorcycle accident. Scott, who asked that we only use his last name, said he thought about taking the younger kid under his wing.
But there were those headless bees.
Flying around like when the doors open and shit. And he'll catch them and he'll put them on his legs, and there'll be like 4 of them with no heads on them.
But otherwise, he seemed like a normal kid. He chatted up the girls he worked with, and he just didn't stand out. Although, when Scott's mother met him, she got a weird vibe, just a bad feeling. She said, "Don't bring that kid around again."
And there was the way he used to talk about girls. It's pretty repulsive language.
Like, yeah, I be going down fucking these bitches up.
At the time, Scott thought he was just being over the top, bragging about his sexual prowess. But now, he thinks it might have been the 20-year-old's way of hinting he was killing those women. That summer and fall of 2016, in between shifts at ShopRite, he was driving around Newark with his kill kit, Googling how to incapacitate or kill women more efficiently, luring them into his car, strangling them in abandoned houses, even setting them on fire.
And then going home for dinner with his mom and his cop stepdad on his quiet street on the good side of town.
He looks like a little boy, but I think he's a predator, no doubt about it.
The young man's name is Khalil Wheeler-Weaver.
This is Someone's Hunting Us, a podcast by NJ.com and the Star Ledger, about a serial killer you've never heard of and the women who took him down. I'm Rebecca Everett.
And I'm Daisy Calavia Robertson. We've already shown you some of Khalil Wheeler-Weaver's dark side, how he murdered and burned Robin West beyond recognition, how he left Joanne Brown's body in a house just blocks from his own.
But he kept that side hidden.
Because his closest friends say he didn't act strange at all during this time.
He had a girlfriend. He was hanging out with his boys almost every day, goofing off as usual. And his coworkers say he was generally relaxed, disarming even. Here's how Adam Wells, an assistant prosecutor, described it in court.
He would commit a heinous crime and he would go on about his day as though nothing had happened.
We wanted to know more about both sides of this man, so we started with the people who knew him best, like his mother.
Okay, you take the lead on speaking here.
We knocked on her door, ready with all our questions and hopeful she might talk to us. But her answer was just 2 words. I can't.
So then we went to someone who was as close as family to Khalil, his best friend since he was 8 years old, Ron Brown. Ron agreed to talk with us at a restaurant, but only after he got the okay from his boy in prison.
You guys talk almost every day?
Every day.
Every day.
Not almost, every day. If we don't speak, if I don't answer the phone, he gets worried. He don't call me, I get worried.
Like mid-interview, he stopped to take a call from Khalil.
Shit, I'm at Fridays right now with the news reporters you asked me to talk to.
People ask Ron how he can stay friends with a serial killer. The short answer is Ron believes his friend is innocent. On the most basic level, his argument is Khalil was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, but 5 times?
Well, he thinks police and even witnesses just pinned these crimes on him.
Now, we know that's not true. But talking with him and his girlfriend, you can see they genuinely believe his friend didn't do it. And I mean, they're basically family.
We talked a lot about Khalil as a little kid. There are photos of him on Facebook swinging on the monkey bars with his tongue out. How could this cute little boy grow up to be a savage serial killer?
My grandmother found a picture of us as kids, both of us with glasses on. That's how people remember us.
Khalil lived on Mount Vernon Ave in Orange with his dad Curtis, his mom, and his older half-brother. His parents' wedding announcement said Curtis worked security, and his wife was a letter carrier. We know she later became a masseuse.
And then Ron moved in, across the street.
It became more family than a friend, so he became the brother I never had.
They were privileged kids, compared to a lot of people in Orange. But Khalil wasn't spoiled rotten.
Mr. Curtis was very strict, but it was like showing you how to be a man kind of strict. Like, it was like on a weekend, like a Saturday. You just not an off day, gotta mow the lawn.
Curtis taught his son about music, too, introducing him to thousands of old school tracks on his turntables. That's how Khalil later got into mixing his own music and DJing at high school parties as DJ K-Swag.
But when he was 14, his father died. A car struck Curtis's motorcycle just blocks from their house.
I won't say he ever changed, but I will say it was different when his father passed away. I mean, yeah, we had our times where he was sad about his pops.
Ron didn't give any details about what was different, but we'll come back to that later in the episode.
Growing up, Khalil would get kind of obsessed with whatever new plan or idea he would come up with. As a kid, he would always call up Ron with schemes to make money.
He's like, look, my dad gave me this amount of money. If we go to the store and buy a bunch of candy and we sold it downtown, we can go buy a bike.
But Ron says as he got older, the plans were all about joining the military. Then it was all about joining law enforcement.
I wonder if that's because Khalil's new stepdad was an East Orange cop.
Or was it all about seeking authority and power?
In high school, Khalil was a car guy. He spent almost every evening working on cars with another close friend, Rich Isaacs.
And that continued into the fall of 2016. If Khalil wasn't working, they'd meet downtown in the parking lot of Orange Commons. They'd be fixing up Rich's Honda Civic or Khalil's 15-year-old BMW. Meanwhile, Rich had no idea his best friend was out stalking the streets for victims.
You see it on TV, but you never think it happened to you in your town, in your life. That's, shit, I'm still shocked to this day that this guy could live. It's impossible. I'm still lost.
We met Rich at the auto repair shop he owns in Orange and jumped into his car. He was so busy, he was texting with an insurance agent and driving with his knees. So we just started asking him questions.
Rich and Khalil were once so close, he was willing to lie to the cops to protect his friend. Yeah, we'll get into that later too.
They don't speak regularly anymore. Rich didn't deny his friend committed these crimes, but I think he also hasn't really come to terms with the truth either.
So here's the thing that really surprised us. Ron and Rich both described Khalil as a ladies' man. Smooth in his nerd chic way, I guess.
We were like, this guy? But Rich told us about one time in particular when he realized he was going to have to step up his game around his friend.
It was Hickory Street in Orange. Like his khaki pants, he had a little fro, his glasses on. And we were talking to some girls, and the girl I was talking to ended up dismissing me and went for Khalil.
He said Khalil had girlfriends and even had one in the fall of 2016. Again, that's when he was killing. She was a Rutgers student. We tried multiple ways to speak with her, but she never responded.
So this was the picture of Khalil his friends painted. A little kid playing football in the park, losing his dad at 14, then getting a new stepdad, the East Orange cop. Then he's at a high school, working, and like a lot of young men, trying to meet girls.
But that's not the whole story. He was also paying for sex.
Now, we can't say for sure when he started seeking out sex workers. We just know that by the spring of 2016, when he was only 19, he was meeting with them with some regularity.
Here's Rich.
Yeah, I don't see him needing to pay for sex. That was shocking. Or like that tagged or whatever that shit was.
On its own, Khalil paying sex workers isn't so shocking. More than a quarter of men have, even guys with girlfriends. But it was a sign Khalil was starting a secret double life, because he certainly wasn't telling his friends about this side of him.
I also talked to a woman who definitely did not consider Khalil a ladies' man. She lived in Orange and said she was 16 when her friends started seeing Khalil. It was 2015 after he graduated. She told me Khalil was that creepy older guy who would come around to West Orange High after school to try to pick up younger girls.
She briefly met Khalil, and not long after, she was leaving a chicken joint near her house when she ran into him. He kept trying to pick her up, get her in his car, even though she barely knew him.
And I thought it was very freaking strange. Like, he was very, like, let me take you home. Like, very persistent. I'm like, I could walk. I live up the street. You don't got to take me nowhere. But he was strange.
We don't know what would have happened if she had gotten in his car.
But after the break, what happened to another woman who did go with him?
Because of her, we know what Khalil Wheeler-Weaver is really capable of.
Tiffany pulled on a pink North Face jacket. She stepped out into the chilly November night, pausing on the second-floor balcony of the shitty motel where she was staying.
The 34-year-old was 4 months pregnant and homeless. A guy she knew had rented the room at a motel in Elizabeth, a city just south of Newark. He was a crackhead, but it had been pouring that day, and at least it was a dry place to sleep.
Earlier that day, Tiffany's phone began blowing up. Some mystery man had gotten her number, and for weeks, he'd been begging her for sex.
She had given up sex work, but now she had a different hustle. When a guy would try to pay her for sex, she'd just take his money and split, rob him.
Like this one con, 7 months earlier. A friend who did sex work introduced her to a skinny 19-year-old kid in Orange she called Youngin'. He loved Tiffany's vibe, her dreadlocks, her attitude, that she could drive stick shift. He offered her $200 for sex, and she agreed.
He asked her if she did roleplay stuff, but she had no intention of doing anything with this kid in his sad twin-size bed. She asked for the money up front, then told him, "My bad, I left the condoms in the car."
And then she drove away with his money, leaving the young man stewing in humiliation.
But that was back in April. On this chilly night in November, Tiffany certainly wasn't thinking about Youngin'. She had no idea Khalil Wheeler-Weaver had been snatching women off the streets, strangling them, and getting away with it.
And she had no idea he was the man calling her all day, offering more and more money for sex, until she finally said yes. But she would take his money and split, like always. Now, the number that had been blowing up her phone sent a text. "I'm here." She headed downstairs.
The desperate hustler meeting the sadistic serial killer, neither expecting how wrong everything would go.
We really wanted to meet and interview Tiffany. She's the only person we know who's seen Khalil Wheeler-Weaver at his most violent and lived to tell.
But we realized it's a really difficult thing to talk about, and she declined our requests.
So what we know about Tiffany's life before this fateful night comes from an interview she gave NJ.com 5 years ago. She told the reporter she grew up in a notoriously violent housing project in Jersey City. She had guns pulled on her and watched 2 boyfriends get killed in front of her.
She dropped out of college in Florida and got pregnant. In New Jersey, she worked minimum wage jobs at McDonald's, movie theaters, and the mall. Then she became addicted to drugs and got into sex work.
You are going to hear Tiffany's words in this episode. We'll have a voice actor read her testimony from court. And this is a good time to warn you that while this podcast is dark, this next part may be especially hard to listen to because it involves descriptions of a violent sexual assault.
Tiffany described how she headed downstairs from the motel balcony that night in November to meet this mysterious man who'd been calling and texting.
He was almost completely covered up, despite the almost 50-degree night. He was wearing a balaclava, concealing most of his face, but not his brown eyes. The hood was up on his black jacket, and he was wearing the tight black gloves from his kill kit.
He kept saying that he was cold. I guess trying to say that's why he had on a ski mask and gloves.
Of course, now we know why he covered up. He didn't want Tiffany to recognize him, to possibly realize he was the same guy she'd conned that spring.
Tiffany had no intention of having sex with him, but went into the motel office and asked about a room as he requested. But they were waved off.
I was telling him that they are not giving up no rooms without ID and stuff like that. And I told him I would check and see if maybe we could get one down further because I knew people there at this other hotel.
The man climbed into the passenger seat of a Lincoln, which Tiffany had borrowed from her friend who got her the room. The two of them went to a nearby gas station. She bought cigarettes and a drink with some of the $80 the guy in the ski mask had given her.
Tiffany said she took him to another motel, but the rate was too expensive. Ready to be done with him, she told him they were heading back to her motel and that they weren't going to have sex.
Within a few blocks, the man asked her to pull over so he could take a leak. She turned onto a side street, pulled over, and he got out.
Then he got back in the car, and it was a blur from there. And I woke up. I think he must have hit me over my head or something. I woke up in the back seat.
Tiffany testified that Khalil was raping her as she came to. She demonstrated in court how he had his arms tight around the front of her neck in a chokehold. How everything went dark again.
All I remember is I passed out and woke up about 3 times altogether from him strangling me.
The third time she came to, she was weak, but she still tried to scratch his face. He pulled out handcuffs and cuffed her hands behind her back. And then he wrapped duct tape around her head, covering her nose and mouth.
That's when Khalil began whispering in her ear. He told her, "I wish we would have been in a room. I would have demolished you."
Tiffany struggled to breathe. She'd lost a few teeth and bitten her tongue in the struggle. But the blood, tears, and sweat soon loosened the duct tape enough so she could speak.
And that's when she used her voice to save her life.
I was hoping I could say anything to get away and try to get into his head because you know the mouth could be like a weapon if you use it right.
By then, Tiffany had seen him remove a condom he was wearing. He climbed into the front seat, watching her. If he was going to kill her, the time was drawing near.
Khalil told her he was going to put her in the trunk and drive her to his side of town.
She asked him to loosen the handcuffs a little and begged him not to stuff her in the trunk. For some reason, he listened.
I said, "You almost killed me." And he said, "No, I didn't. I was just putting you out. I know what I was doing. I did this before." He was speaking like really calm, like he wasn't nervous or nothing, like just calm and collected.
Then, Khalil Wheeler-Weaver took off the balaclava. When he finally revealed his face, Tiffany was sure he intended to kill her.
He said, "Do I look familiar? You don't remember me?" And I'm like, "From where?" And he was like, "You took my money."
He wasn't shouting at her, just talking. But he clearly made a choice. He targeted her. And he wanted this woman to know, "You thought you got one over on me, but now look who's in control."
But she had one card left to play. She told them all the evidence the cops needed to lock him up was sitting right there in her motel room.
I told him I had left my phone in the room. With all our texts going back and forth, he got a little excited. His voice got high and he said, "Oh no, we gotta go back and get that phone."
Tiffany gave him an even better idea. Bring me back to the motel. I'll give you my phone, and my friend will pay you. We could go get a few $1,000s from an ATM, and then you could let us go.
So Khalil got behind the wheel and drove back to Tiffany's motel. Somehow only an hour had gone by since he showed up.
Surveillance video captured him parking the Lincoln, getting out and opening the back door. He leaned in to take off the duct tape around her head, leaving abrasions on her nose, cheeks, and ears. He draped her coat over her shoulders to hide the cuffs.
Khalil hid by the stairs, watching as she climbed to the balcony and turned toward her room. She kicked the door of room 32, hoping her friend inside would open it.
And like a miracle, the door opened. She jumped inside and slammed it shut behind her.
In a heartbeat, Khalil was flying up the stairs. But he was too late.
He was banging on the door because I wasn't supposed to shut the door when I went in. So he was banging on the door and he was yelling, you lie, come back out." After a while, I opened up the blind and showed him that I was out of one cuff, and that's when he ran off.
She knew he was still out there, lurking in the parking lot. He still had the keys to the Lincoln, and she didn't know what else he might have.
I was scared. I didn't know if he had a gun or a knife, or if he was going to kick the door in and finish me off.
She asked her roommate to call 911. He didn't understand what had happened, but he told the dispatcher that someone had tried to hurt her. Then he passed her the phone. This is the recording of Tiffany on that call.
Hello?
Hello?
What is the address that you're at?
The Ritz Motel on 1 and 9 Elizabeth.
What was that?
Ritz Motel 1 and 9 in Elizabeth.
Ritz Motel?
Yes.
That somebody that tried to hurt you and take your keys?
Yes. Somebody just kidnapped me, okay? All right? They have his car keys, and I don't know if he's still outside. They probably ran off by now when they see I didn't come back out. Who did
they kidnap?
I was kidnapped, yeah.
You were? And they just...
Yes.
They just took your car keys and left?
They took my friend's car keys and left, yes.
And how long ago did they kidnap you?
Okay, this happened. I can't even explain it right now. This is all within the last hour, maybe.
Listening to that call, you can hear how shaky Tiffany's voice is. She's terrified. Terrified this deranged man is still outside, and terrified that the brutal attack might have hurt her unborn baby. But she was incredibly clear about one last point.
I know who did it. I know who did it, too.
Okay.
While Tiffany was waiting for the police to arrive at the motel, her attacker was driving home, where he would slide back into the role of the good son. But the facade wasn't perfect. It started slipping long before Khalil Wheeler-Weaver killed his victims and kidnapped Tiffany. This artifice of a polite young man, of a hardworking kid, of a future cop who just wanted to help his friends, help the police, help girls like Robin West get dominoes and a place to crash.
But every little moment where he lost control revealed a glimpse of the monster. They were subtle warnings, both years before and during his killing spree.
Old acquaintances creeped out by his behavior, coworkers unnerved by odd comments, encounters with police after he lost his temper or got caught stealing.
Khalil's good manners and calm demeanor seemed to win everyone over at his job at the Target in East Hanover.
Angela Zora was the head of loss prevention there in December 2014, when thousands of dollars in iPod Touch devices went missing.
Police found some of the iPods were resold to several GameStops. Of the employees involved in the theft, she said one name was a complete shocker: Khalil Wheeler-Weaver.
When we realized it was him after the investigation, it took us a minute to put the face to the name because he was always very polite. He didn't give any of that deceitful or anything in that sense.
She literally called him a handsome gentleman, the last person she ever suspected. But he eventually took a plea deal and was ordered to pay restitution.
In court, the judge saw what everyone else saw in those days. A good, respectful kid who made a mistake, not a devious criminal.
I think he even had like a blue shirt, or it could be just the memory from like everything I'd seen in the news at this point. But I remember he just had like a button down and slacks. And his stepfather at the time, I thought it was his father, was a police officer. And they came up and he pleaded with the judge. He has no previous offenses. And that was it.
It was about 18 months before he would start killing.
People who worked with him later remembered strange conversations. Like maybe his obsession with killing couldn't be contained.
Scott already told us about Khalil saying he was, quote, fucking these bitches up. But at his previous job at FedEx, Khalil had been even more explicit. A coworker who just wants to go by Dennis said their job was to fill up giant trucks. It was boring work, and they talked about all sorts of random stuff to pass the time. But Khalil took it to weird places.
He ended up just asking me crazy questions, random questions, what you think is the best way to, if you had to kill somebody, what would you do?
Dennis was like, I don't know, maybe an ice pick? But then his coworker just kept talking about it.
He's like, yo, how would you get rid of the body? And I'm like, I don't know. I ain't never think about all that. And he was like, well, you could try acid.
You could try acid? Like on Breaking Bad?
This is not normal bullshitting at work. But still, why would you think he was serious?
But there was another moment that stood out. Dennis was from Newark, and he teased Khalil for acting hard. Like, you're an eloquent kid from a decent neighborhood. What do you know about the streets?
I told him, you ain't violent. Man, y'all some punks in orange. He just looked at me in my eyes and he said, oh, you have no idea. He said, I'm with the really bad and the ugly.
The bad and the ugly. And Dennis knows now. It was the truth.
But it seems like Khalil was good at hiding it most of the time. He never faced violent charges before the killings, but there were a couple of times when his rage seemed to bubble over. He got in trouble a couple times for not complying with an officer.
Like in January 2015, when he got pulled over for tailgating a cop. The report says he refused to roll down his tinted windows, and they called backup. Here's Rebecca reading the report.
The driver finally rolled down his window and began to become belligerent with officers, stating, "Why the fuck did I get pulled over? I don't have to show you shit."
Crazy, because that's the opposite of how he acted when officers asked him about Robin West.
The friction between Khalil's two lives is showing. But this dark side, how did it even start?
I feel like with any crime, we always want to know why. How could someone do this?
Like, how can someone go from this little kid on the monkey bars to a monster who becomes obsessed with sadistic sex and killing?
I talked to a girl named Lynn, who was friends with him until middle school. She said at that age, most of his friends were girls. One day, when they were 14, after hours of hanging out and having fun, Khalil delivered a monologue about his dad that she and her brothers will never forget.
So we were sitting in the hallway of the building, and out of nowhere, he said, oh yeah, my father got killed. He got hit by a Mexican, and now I hate all Mexicans. Like, that is his exact statement, and it got really quiet. It got really awkward.
The racism was shocking enough, but what really creeped her out is that he showed zero emotion as he said it, and he'd just been joking and laughing earlier. She wondered if he was a psychopath. Maybe he'd been putting on an act.
I told my brother straight up, after today, if he comes knocking on the door, ringing the bell, don't open that door because it's something weird going on with him.
So was it just a kid not knowing how to act about his dad's death? Or was this someone with serious emotional issues?
We decided to take all our questions to an expert in serial killer psychology. I was searching for just the right person when I realized he was basically right in my backyard, here in Jersey. Are you Dr. White? Hi.
Hi.
Rebecca, nice to meet you. Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Dr. White kind of sounds like a character from Clue.
John White is a psychology professor and a former cop who studies and interviews serial killers. He said his students have done reports on Khalil Wheeler-Weaver for a profiling class. He's an interesting case study because he doesn't seem to have any abuse or other red flags in his past.
Yeah, but what about the bees? You always hear that serial killers get their start by being cruel to animals.
Yeah, I shared with him everything we'd learned about Khalil, including that.
You know, taking heads off bees, kids do that all the time, you know, kill insects or experiment with insects. You start getting up into cats and larger animals, then I would say, oh, there's a sign.
Okay, but even if there were no warning signs, I wonder if he even had time to develop any. I mean, this guy had a sadistic second life before he could even legally drink. What about the trauma of his dad's death? Did it affect him in some crazy, disturbed way?
It kind of depends on where he was in his emotional development when his father died. There's probably other variables because generally a parent dying doesn't push you to start killing women.
So what about those other variables? Dr. White and two other experts told us serial killers sometimes kill women out of anger at their mothers. But Khalil seemed to have a fine relationship with his.
They all speculated that Khalil was fueled by rejection, probably from women, whether it was real or perceived.
And there is evidence to back this theory up. It's from Tiffany. Her survival means she's the only window we have into his actions during these attacks. And she told NJ.com that Khalil said something to her in the car that night about no one wanting him. He said, "Why do I have to pay for a girl to show me attention?"
Right, that's what was on his mind at that moment. Like, here he is torturing a woman, and he's feeling sorry for himself.
It doesn't seem like he couldn't get a girlfriend or dates, and we heard he was always trying to talk to girls. But maybe he wasn't getting what he wanted, or felt he deserved from them.
One expert said it came from low self-esteem, feeling inadequate. And remember what he wrote on his Twitter page?
Yeah, I scrolled it all. He was just out of high school and posting about wanting a girlfriend and like, "Bitches love me, but for some reason I can't find any." I mean, it was 2 years before the murders, but it does fit with the theory.
I told Dr. White about how Tiffany had robbed Khalil 7 months before the attack, when he was trying to pay her for sex. But he said it's probably not one incident that led to those feelings of rejection.
It's like a perfect storm of situations that have happened and how he perceives those. So many of the serial killers have these cognitive distortions about themselves. So he could have that, and it's not her fault, of course, but that certainly could have fueled that by stealing his money and, just total humiliation.
Attacking these women gave him back the power he craved. Even worse, Khalil Wheeler-Weaver, however nice his friends said he was, clearly enjoyed the suffering of his victims.
So if he's making them go unconscious and then bringing them back and then doing it again, that's called the death game, suffocation game. That's clearly sadistic behavior.
Khalil was very young for a serial killer. Dr. White said most are between 25 and 35 when they first kill, but almost all of them have been fantasizing about it for years. And that may include Khalil.
So that 18-year-old who went to prom in a teal vest and bow tie with a date on his arm, he might have already been fantasizing about raping and murdering. He'd even asked Tiffany back when he was 19 if she did role-playing. Maybe that was about this fantasy.
He strikes me as a person who's been fantasizing, and then he does it, and it's such a rush that he's got to do it again and again and again.
For serial killers, it's similar to addiction, their urge for that dopamine rush. And 20-year-olds have terrible impulse control.
Especially the immature, inexperienced killers will feel that rush and then want it as fast as they can. No delayed gratification.
The experts universally said Khalil wasn't sophisticated. Wearing a condom and gloves and wiping down a car, you can learn all that from watching CSI. He took his cell phone to every crime scene. His search history was damning.
But they said he was good at one thing: pulling on that mask and hiding the monster within, presenting only the nerdy, nice young man.
This persona was all his friends could see, and it worked to make his victims feel comfortable as they got in his car with a skinny guy who still looked like he might be in high school. And it worked when he played the part of the good guy with police.
But would he have to turn it on again for Elizabeth Police? He had to assume that Tiffany would call 911 from the motel after she outsmarted him and escaped.
I wonder if he was driving home, worrying about whether she knew his real name or whether police would believe her.
But she would do everything she could to get him. It was clear from the moment she spoke to that police dispatcher.
I know who did it. I know who did it, too.
Okay. We'll send the police to you. Is there a room number, or are you waiting in the lobby?
32. I'm not going outside. I'm scared.
Okay, so you lock yourself in the room and stay in there, all right?
All right. Bye.
Next time on Someone's Hunting Us.
Why do you have a handcuff on your arm?
I got kidnapped.
And they handcuffed your one arm?
This is a person who comes from a strong family, strong community support. She did not fit what he thought was the typical profile.
He just took his shirt off and said, okay. And where we saw like a scratch on his tricep.
Someone's Hunting Us is a production of NJ Advanced Media.
The podcast is reported and produced by me, Daisy Calavia Robertson, and Rebecca Everett. Our executive producers are Christopher Kelly, Jessica Beam, Jeff Roberts, and Jess Mazzola.
This podcast is recorded and mixed by Alex Graves at Sound on Sound Studios in Montclair, New Jersey. Our composer is Blake Maples. James Shapiro is our associate audio engineer. Our website is designed by Allah Salim. Our voice actor for this episode is Melissa Hansen.
Special thanks to each and every person who shared their story with us.
If you want to see photos, videos, timelines, and other extras from this story, check out our website, someone'shuntingus.com. You can contact us at inbox@someone'shuntingus.com.
Follow Someone's Hunting Us, and if you're enjoying it, please rate and review it. Word of mouth is huge, so please help spread the word.